But I will say what pursuing that credential did was really force me to engage in very regular supervision. And I am so grateful for that. I think that supervision, especially when I was starting my practice, supervision was like this thing that it's like, oh, well, it seems like it could be helpful, but also I'm not making any money yet and it's expensive. Like it's an investment, right? And so there's that hesitation of making that investment and will it be worth it? And like hands down, I think engaging in my own individual supervision with another eating disorder provider is like, I mean, I still do it on a very regular basis is the best investment I have made and continue to make in my professional development. And also just like my own mental health and being in this field.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to RD's Thriving in Private Practice, where we share our collective wisdom about building a nutrition practice and get inspired. Joining me today is Dana Notte. Dana is a non-diet dietitian, certified eating disorder specialist supervisor, and certified intuitive eating counselor, passionate about helping clients transform their relationship with food and body. Through her practice, ThrivInspired Nutrition, Dana specializes in chronic dieting recovery, disordered eating, and eating disorders, using a compassionate, HAES-informed approach grounded in mindfulness and intuitive eating. Dana supports clients in shifting focus from weight to well-being, rebuilding trust in their bodies, and reclaiming the joy of eating. She collaborates with clients to explore the roots of eating behaviors, identify barriers to change, and develop individualized strategies for lasting health and peace with food. In addition to private practice, Dana is an educator and advocate. She has taught at the University of Vermont, trained clinicians, and presented on topics like binge eating disorder and weight stigma. Her expertise has been featured in Time, Health, and Eating Well. She also served on the board of directors for the Center for Mindful Eating. Dana's offerings include group coaching, self-study courses, and private sessions. Outside work, she enjoys traveling, outdoor adventures, and fostering rescue animals. My kind of girl, for sure. Yeah. So welcome, Dana. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to join you for this conversation.
Nice. So we'll start in the usual way, and let's hear a bit about what your journey has been like as a dietitian and what led you to this specialty and the populations that you serve.
Yeah, would love to. So I've been a dietitian for going on 15 years. And I always kind of joke when I describe my journey that when I finished my internship and sat for the exam and, officially became a registered dietitian, that, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in the field of dietetics, but I knew one thing, and it was that I did not want to work with eating disorders because because I felt like, and I think that this is, unfortunately still true, that we're not, our training doesn't really prepare us well to work with this population. And I felt really intimidated and honestly just afraid that I was going to do the wrong thing. And so I just decided that that wasn't going to be an avenue that I would consider. And so I started my career as a dietitian working in weight management, like many of us do. And I worked for a commercial weight loss program and had the experience of, working with people for a period of time, seeing them make progress, lose weight. And then there would be a point in time where that weight loss would plateau or they would start to regain that weight. And it was like, despite their best efforts and my best efforts, like we were both feeling pretty defeated, right? And like unsure of what to do. And I had a little bit of this sort of like professional identity crisis of like, I don't know what I'm doing, but like this doesn't feel right. And I don't know what to do differently. And it was around that time, like 2013-ish, that I discovered intuitive eating for the first time. And I read the book, and I had so many kind of like light bulb moments where I just felt like it was, they were articulating all of the experiences that I was having and like able to explain why my experience was what it was. And so I became really, really interested in learning more. I, kind of like searched out like all of the trainings that I could find related to intuitive eating and mindful eating. I also completed Michelle May's Am I Hungry Mindful Eating program, and really began to shift my practice to a more kind of like non-diet approach. And then I was kind of working at that point in time in more of like a worksite wellness space. And then I had the opportunity to work for a wellness retreat in southern Vermont called Green Mountain at Fox Run, for anyone who might have been familiar. I started there in 2015, and I feel so, so grateful for that opportunity, because that was where I really got to develop my skill set in working with people with eating disorders and disordered eating, and really got to, grew a lot of confidence in that, in my skill set during my time there as well. And so that program closed in 2019. And so I knew that after that, like I had my direction in terms of where I wanted to be in the field of nutrition, and that was working specifically with eating disorders. And so I felt like the right time to venture out on my own. And 2019 is when I started my private practice here in Vermont, working with folks with eating disorders and disordered eating. And that is where I'm at now. So yeah, kind of a total 180 there. And so I always, newer dietitians to the field, always encourage them to kind of keep an open mind about where you might end up, and, kind of remain open to opportunity, because you might be surprised by where you end up kind of finding your calling.
Right, right. And it sounds like the pivotal moment was discovering the intuitive eating resource.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And sort of like, here's the answer to why I'm struggling in this particular part of the field.
Totally. Like I had not heard about, no, but at that same time, I had the opportunity to go to Fancy that year for the first time as well. And remember seeing Jessica Setnick speak and say that, if you are working with humans, you are going to be working with eating disorders, and kind of this like aha moment of like, regardless of whether or not eating disorders are a population that I want to work with, it's a population I'm going to be working with. And so, kind of like fueled that desire to just learn more and understand more. And, prior to that, like I had never heard of intuitive eating or health at every size. And so like learning about these concepts and these frameworks kind of just like opened a whole new area of the field that I didn't even know existed prior to that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And when did you decide to pursue the IADEP certification for eating disorders?
Yeah. So I started that. I decided to pursue that when I started my private practice. Prior to that, I felt like it wasn't necessary, right? Because like I was my skill set was my skill set, and I was working kind of like, well, I was working for another company. And so when I decided to pursue the certification, was when I was building my own practice and really wanted to, I guess, be known as kind of like a credible kind of like person or provider in this space. And we really don't, at that time, we have more now, but at that time there really weren't that many eating disorder specific nutrition resources in our area. And so I think it felt like something that would be helpful to maybe set me apart.
Certainly, certainly. And I'm not a certified eating disorder specialist. I'm an eating disorder specialist, but not certified with that credential. But my understanding is that it provides such a really, really great foundation for people who just need to learn about like the best standards of practice and care, right?
I
Yeah.
will say that for me, by the time I actually started doing all of the core courses, I already had such a strong foundation in eating disorder care that it felt that part for me felt a little bit like going through the motions. But I will say what pursuing that credential did was really force me to engage in very regular supervision. And I am so grateful for that. I think that supervision, especially when I was starting my practice, supervision was like this thing that it's like, oh, well, it seems like it could be helpful, but also I'm not making any money yet and it's expensive. Like it's an investment, right? And so there's that hesitation of making that investment and will it be worth it? And like hands down, I think engaging in my own individual supervision with another eating disorder provider is like, I mean, I still do it on a very regular basis is the best investment I have made and continue to make in my professional development. And also just like my own mental health and being in this field. And so I think that's what pursuing the eating disorder credential really like forced me to do, because it's a requirement for pursuing that credential. I like to think that I would have done it on my own volition, but I'm not sure that I would have. And now like I just so appreciate the value of supervision that I'm really grateful that it really opened my eyes to that.
I agree with you. And I would just want to emphasize that for the audience, that no matter what your specialty is, seeking out supervision, especially for complex cases, you can be working in the functional nutrition space or the weight change space or the diabetes space. Finding someone that knows just a little bit more than you or is on par with you, where you can bounce off like, hey, something's not working here. What am I missing? Is so valuable. And I sort of wish that And would provide some kind of credit towards our CEUs for seeking out supervision. Right? That'd be awesome. But
yeah. Yeah. It's so valuable. And I wish that it was something I didn't know what supervision was really until I started working, entering into the eating disorder space too, because it's not something that we really hear about in terms of dietetics work outside of the eating disorder space. But I do think that it is something that it doesn't really matter what area of practice you are in, that it is just so incredibly valuable. And sometimes just like for the validation and reassurance piece that like you're doing the things that like you're doing the right thing, right?
Yeah.
Or you're doing the right things is really helpful.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about nuts and bolts of starting and building the practice. So when you let's hear a little bit about the actual decision. Like, what were you wrestling with when you were like, shouldn't I? How do I do this? What's my first step? Like going really back to the very beginning.
Yeah. I think it's something that like I thought about, I had interest in early on in my career as a dietitian, but I think early on what I really lacked was direction in terms of what I even wanted to do in the field. And so I think I really needed to have, the experiences that I had to kind of figure out what my calling was in terms of dietetics work before I could really pursue building a practice that before I had the confidence to start and grow my practice. And I think that, I started to think about it a lot more seriously when I was working for the program that I described earlier. I loved working for that program, and it was like a 2-hour commute from my house. So I basically like would drive down and like stay there a couple of nights during the week and then drive home. And I just knew that wasn't going to be sustainable for me forever. And so at some point I imagined that I would, kind of pursue starting my own practice. And I just thought I'd have a little bit more time to plan that and save for that, which, and then when the program made the decision to close, it was before I was ready, but I was kind of like, okay, well, then I guess that this is what we're doing, because I really didn't see me being able to find another place of employment that was going to be compatible with my practice philosophy, and also the flexibility that I wanted in my life and my schedule. I really, really like having autonomy when it comes to that. And so I was just feeling a lot of, I was just feeling a lot of doubt that I was going to find another position that was going to fill my cup the way that I would have wanted. So I basically decided immediately, as soon as I knew that that program was going to be ending, that was going to be my next move, was going to be starting my practice, and started that process immediately without knowing a lot about what would be involved. But yeah, luckily, we have a lot of resources locally in our community that were really, really helpful for just kind of like figuring out the basic steps of like what's involved with starting a business in general, and kind of understanding laws in Vermont, and all of those kinds of details. But yeah, I think that it's something that's always been of interest to me. And then I kind of had this major life transition that sort of like propelled me into, okay, this is what I'm doing. And I kind of think I maybe needed that too, to like take the leap to do it, because it was also so easy to get comfortable with this like reliable salary and benefits, and all of the things that you often get with a full-time employer.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge risk to strike
Yeah.
out on one's own. And, I'm sure that people listening in our audience are nodding along with you. Like, yeah, how many programs have I worked for that closed? Like, just don't make it. And fortunately, if we have the seed of the idea, then it's a lot easier to execute, rather than just being blindsided and like, oh my gosh, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Where do I work? Right? There's
Mhm.
no place that is compatible, as you say, with my philosophy. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. So did you go like all in on, so what year was it that you started your practice?
2019,
2019.
February of 2019
Okay.
is when
So
I
we know what
formed my
happened.
business.
We
Yeah.
know what happened the year after, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
had some ideas in 2019 that needed to shift a little bit in 2020. So
Yeah.
what was your vision? And then how did you need to pivot during the pandemic?
Yeah, sure. So, um, I'm still working on my vision. So I love doing, I enjoy individual nutrition counseling, and I knew that that is where I was going to start with my business, also because it seemed kind of like the lowest hanging fruit in terms of being able to get back to a similar income to what I was making in my full-time job. I felt pretty confident that there was enough need in my community, and there was, to fill my practice. And so that's where I started. And then where I've kind of started to branch out, and what has always been my intention, is I really love doing group programming. In the program that I was working with previously, that was like the majority of my job was more group-based programming. And so my goal has always been to be able to expand the services that I offer, to offer more group-based programs, which I am doing, have been doing for the last couple of years. My goal in the next year is to really grow that even further. But yeah, so I started my practice in 2019. It took a few months to really start to build a caseload, because I was getting credentialed with insurance. And so once I had my insurance contracts in place, which was really like spring of 2019, I think May, that was when I was, really able to add people to my caseload in a quicker fashion. And But, you know, it still takes time to build up to like a full-time caseload. And March 2020, I remember feeling like early March 2020, like feeling really excited the day that I had filled my entire availability. It was like the first time since I had started my practice that I could say that like I am 100% full and I can't add anyone else to my caseload. And then 2 weeks later, like everything started to shut down, and I was working with a lot of college students, and then they were like going back to their home states, and there was so much uncertainty around like what the laws, you know, how we were going to, there's going to be changes made to like telehealth laws, and would I be able to see these people? And so it was like my caseload went from being full to being like 50% full, like overnight. Um, and I think like a lot of people, I was like, well, we'll just see how this plays out, right? Like maybe maybe we won't be like locked down for that long. And, a few months in, I think it became pretty clear that like, oh no, like this isn't going anywhere anytime soon. I did hold on to my physical office space for like 7 months because I really loved it and I was reluctant to let it go. But it was also the case that my caseload dropped and it didn't take long for it to come back up because in terms of people struggling with eating disorders, we saw a really rapid increase in that during the pandemic. But I switched to an entirely virtual practice overnight, which prior to that, I think I had one person on my caseload that I was seeing virtually sometimes, but I was not offering. I mean, I wasn't really. It was an option, but nobody. It wasn't the norm to do virtual care, right? And so everybody came into my office, and I hated telehealth at first. I was like, I cannot wait to get back to being in person, face to face with people. But we got used to that as well. And also I was able to see kind of like expand my vision for who I could serve because telehealth allowed me to work with people who were not, in my immediate geographic location, right? Like I had clients all over the state. And I don't know if we said I live in Vermont. And so like we're a small state, but also a pretty rural state. And so I live in, kind of the most populated area in the Burlington area. But, there are really limited resources in the more rural pockets of our state. And so I mean, I was able to expand my services to working with people all throughout the state. I do work with people in some other states as well, but I think COVID like really also helped me to imagine kind of broadening my horizons for like who I could serve and how we could do that. And I became less resistant to telehealth as a result of that.
And so now you're back doing more of a hybrid thing. So you've got your office space,
Correct.
New office space, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now we have a hybrid model. I will also say that in that time, I've also added 2 other dietitians to my practice, which I didn't imagine that I was going to go down the group practice road. So we can talk about that too, if we want. But yeah, this summer we decided to return to an in-person office space. We have a really nice office suite where we have in-person sessions available to folks. We still do mostly telehealth, but I think for some people, we're finding that some people are really appreciating the option to be seen in person. And for some people, it's just delivery of care is better when in the in-person setting than it is via telehealth.
Yeah, I agree, especially with some of our, shared clientele within, disordered eating. There's often a lot of nervous system dysregulation, and being present in the room with a regulated nervous system can be really helpful for them. So I 100% agree. I wish more of my clients wanted to come in person more often,
Yeah.
but that's another feature of the disordered eating population, of the tendency to kind of self-sequester sometimes. So, but the addition of your, are they employees? Are they contractors? What are the rules and laws, regulations in Vermont for that?
They are employees. My understanding, so I did meet with an employment attorney when I was considering building out my practice and hiring on more dietitians. And I don't actually recall like what the federal laws are around like how they differentiate between an employee or a contractor. So I don't know if this is the case federally, but I know that at least in the state of Vermont, if the person is considered to be essential to your business, then you cannot hire them as an independent contractor. They have to be an employee. And so, my business is doing nutrition counseling, right? And so if I'm hiring somebody to do nutrition counseling, can't really make the case that they're not essential to our core business, right? And so yeah, when I met with an attorney, it was like pretty clear that that was going to be the safest option. And I felt very okay with that too. I also, I think a lot of dietitians can relate to this. I like things done a certain way. And when you have independent contractors, you don't get a lot of say or any say around how they do their job. Right.
Right.
And so I knew that like I also really like to provide a flexible work environment for my employees and give them a lot of autonomy. But I wanted to make sure that there's consistency in how we're documenting, because we are an insurance-based practice. And so that is really important, right? That there is consistency there. And I wanted to be able to make it, part of the terms of the agreement are that like you have some evening availability a couple of times a week, because those are really popular time slots that people are requesting. And so I knew that I wanted to have some control over what that like position looked like, and that I wouldn't have that if I was hiring as hiring independent contractors either.
Totally. And again, I want to reiterate for anybody watching, because we get so many questions in this group about, I want to add a new dietitian. Like, you've got to check with your state. It's going to be different, because I know that, the legalities are different across states. So just be really, really careful and, do your due diligence before you jump into something and then make a huge mistake that might be very costly. Yeah.
I think that, in terms of like, hiring an employment attorney, like, again, it's one of those places where it's like we kind of cringe at the hourly rate that is that we're paying for that service. But the way that I view it is like, I want to make sure that I'm doing everything correct up front going into this, because if you are unintentionally not doing something correctly, like the fines that are associated with that would be so much greater than what I am paying my attorney to make sure I'm doing this right the first time. And the attorney that I work with does offer a small business discount, which, still expensive, but was a nice perk as well.
Yeah. And do you, are you formed as an LLC, or what's your, yes. Okay.
Yeah. We're formed as an LLC.
Okay. Great. Yeah. I want to pivot a little bit and hear a bit about how you do the group coaching and your self-study courses. Like, how did you grow these particular parts of your business?
Yeah, I would say these are still the areas that I am actively working on growing. But for the past 2.5 years, I have been offering, I've been running, and I do like a few cohorts a year, an intuitive eating group coaching program. And how that honestly started, it was like, so one of my areas that maybe I struggle with a little bit is like, I have this thing that I want to do, but there's often like a lot of, I'm also really good at finding all of the reasons why it's not the right time to do that yet, right? It's like, here's this thing that I want to do, but like, it feels too risky to like travel that path yet. And so the first time that I offered the group, which again, part of my original business plan was was offering group-based programs, but the first time that I offered the group, so I got an email from another dietitian locally who's working one of the hospital systems, and would refer eating disorder clients to me, and said that she had a patient who she felt like, who was looking for an intuitive eating group, had really connected with the concept of intuitive eating, didn't have anybody in her like social circle that like she could connect with around this, and so was really looking for a space to do this. And so she contacted me and said like, are you offering any groups, around this? And I was like, well, I don't have any planned, but maybe it's something that I'd consider. And then I was just like, well, I should just do it, right? Like I should just, pilot a group and see what happens. And so I did. I created, at first it was a 6-week group, and I've expanded from there. And that first group like filled 3 weeks before the group started. And so, I had priced it pretty low because I was piloting this concept. I wanted to see if there was interest. I was trying something totally new, and so knew that I was going to be kind of like building it as I went. And so I really just wanted to see, okay, is this something that could work?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, I had a full group for that first cohort, and it was such an awesome experience. Like, I loved the community and the connection that formed there. And I just felt like, it never felt like work signing on for those. It still doesn't. Like when I sign on for those group calls, like I enjoy it so, so much. And so I was really excited when that, when that first group was so successful. And so then I had led two more cohorts that year. Both, I don't know if I had 100% capacity in both of those, but close to it, and certainly enough to make it worth running the group for both of those. And things kind of grew from there. After being able to run kind of that iteration of the group for a bit, I was able to identify how I wanted that group to evolve. And, and I had the opportunity to collect some feedback from participants too. And, really it was like, we want more time together. So now it's a 10-week program rather than a 6-week program. I offer like a drop-in group afterward for people who've completed the program, who want to continue to connect. And I wanted ways to, and I had done a little bit of business coaching, specifically around like, okay, I have this group that's going pretty well, and people are really engaged, but it's kind of like, well, they complete this group and then it's like, well, then what? Right. And how do I kind of like keep these people like in the fold, right, and connected with me and my practice? And so I worked with somebody to kind of map out what that could look like. And so that's where some of those self-study programs came from, where all of those my self-study programs have all been offered as a live program, and then, recorded, and then also offered as a self-study program for people who weren't able to participate live. And so I have, going into the new year, I have all sorts of ideas for how I want to like update those as well. But those really came from me wanting to find more ways that I could bring people in to my practice, and then also maybe encourage them to stick around, right? That like, okay, well, I did this course and it was really helpful. Maybe one of these other kind of like related course topics would be helpful. And the other piece of that too is being able to offer services at different price points. And so, participating in the full 10-week group program might not be something that is like as financially accessible to somebody. But I have a like 4-module self-study program that it's kind of like an intro to what we do in the 10-week program. And that might be a place where somebody feels more able or comfortable starting. And so yeah, that's kind of the evolution of that. And I will say like that is the area of my practice that I am actively working on continuing to grow and develop.
Nice. Yeah. So I have 2 questions. One question is about what kind of platform do you host the self-study and the coaching programs on? And then the second one is, how do you market? How are you able to fill and reach and have the visibility where people actually know that you exist and that these coaching courses and self-study courses are available?
Yeah. So in terms of platforms, I use Practice Better for basically everything. I thought when I was starting to build out some of the group programs that like I was really attracted to some of the other platforms like Teachable, and I don't know, I looked at like Thinkific. I looked at a bunch of them, but and I like the look and feel of them, I think is maybe and maybe kind of like the user experience is from the participant side is a little bit nicer in those programs. But the practical part of me was like, it doesn't make sense. Like I'm already paying for like the highest level of Practice Better, and it offers like it offers all of the functionality I need to have. It doesn't necessarily look as nice as some of the, kind of the look and feel isn't as nice, but it's totally functional and doesn't cost me any more money too. And it's also nice for me. It's like, I feel like when we start to set up a business, it's like I have to create accounts, so many different accounts in so many different places that it's like nice to have everything housed in a single place. So I have found Practice Better to, really meet my needs right now, at least in terms of, my individual nutrition counseling practice and the one-on-one work that we're doing with clients, and being able to build out my group-based programs and self-study programs. So everything is housed within Practice Better. And then I just use Squarespace to as my website host, and have links on there that link to the purchase page on Practice Better for those programs. So I guess, and I have the Zoom integration for Practice Better too. So I do all of my groups happen on the Zoom platform.
Got it. And so how do you market these programs?
Yeah. Oh, isn't that a good question? I would say like this is one of the things that, again, like I'm continuing to work on. I have a wait list opt-in for people on my website. So if they go to my website and they look at the program and they either can't participate on the dates that it's being offered, or like there isn't another one scheduled yet, that they can add their name to the wait list. And so they will get notified when the next cohort is announced. And I always try to I offer like a little bit of a perk to people on the wait list. So people on the wait list find out about when that program is going to be, is launching before the rest of the world. And there's always like a special perk for like, if you sign up within the next week, then like you get this extra bonus that won't be available to anybody else. And so I have quite a few people on the wait list. And then I would say, so I'm not very active on social media. I always post it on social media just to throw it out to the world when I am going to be leading a group, but that is not a place where I get clients from. I would say most people who join my groups, we have a lot of people from like our practice who are working with us one-on-one, who also then choose to participate in the groups. But I get referrals from other providers. So I have like a list of people that I collaborate with, therapists and, some doctors and some like size inclusive fitness professionals and just people in the professional space. So I will always let them know when I am going to be running a new group. And so I would say the majority of referrals to my group come from that. So reaching out to my network, and it's like individual referrals. And then I post in, the Facebook pages on the like marketing days where you're allowed to post. For anyone who is in the eating disorder space, this is a little bit of an aside, but the IFED listserv, International Federation for Eating Disorder Dietitians, like so high. It is, I think it's like $25 a year to participate in. It is like so worth it. I always post in there, or when people say like, oh, like I have a client looking for a group that, and it sounds like my group would be a good fit for that. I always respond to those. So I don't necessarily know that I don't have like a real streamlined marketing approach at this point in time. But through word of mouth and reaching out to my network, I've always got enough people to make the group worthwhile running.
That is excellent. Great. Yeah. Well, we have gone a little bit over time, so I appreciate you having that kind of flexibility. And, I'm happy to do it, of course. But let's, as we wrap it up here, maybe either some words of inspiration to people who might be either thinking of starting and wanting to take the leap, or feeling stuck at a certain point in their practice, or feeling disillusioned, or just not sure, right? And then maybe share, something that you would have done differently if you could do it all over again.
Oh boy. Okay. So words of inspiration, if you're thinking about starting your practice, like, oh my gosh, totally get it. I think like we are all going to feel, there's always going to be that level of self-doubt and uncertainty and should I do this? And what I found really helpful was like connecting with colleagues who had done it and have been successful, and being able to see that like it's possible and that you can do this was really, really helpful. I remember there was a dietitian in my area who said, when I first started, she was really helping me understand like insurance billing. And she was so generous with her time, and I'm so grateful to her. But she said, Dana, at the beginning, like you're going to have weeks where you have like one person come into your office and you're going to think to yourself, oh my God, what am I even doing here? And she's like, it will grow and they will come. Like you have to be patient. And so I was really, really grateful for her saying that to me, because that is so the truth and the experience that I had. And I would remind myself, I would like hear those words over in my head when I was feeling that self-doubt. And so, yeah, that was super helpful. I think I've participated in some like private practice and group practice owner sort of like mastermind type groups that are, kind of informal, but just like, okay, like once a month, let's get together and talk. And that has been so valuable too, because, almost always somebody else in that group has had a similar experience to what I am having or what I'm experiencing or what I need support around. And so being able to find that community and that connection and to feel less alone, because I think being in private practice can feel really isolating sometimes. And so being able to connect with other people who can relate and understand and provide insight and support has been so, so helpful. So highly recommend that. And one thing, if I could go back and do it again, what I would do differently. This might be a little thing, but I think it maybe speaks to a bigger point. so again, this is probably coming from that like self-doubt piece. And I felt on the one hand, I was like, I have to accept insurance because I don't think that I could build a successful practice in my area being private pay, and accepting insurance like really aligns with my values in terms of wanting to make my services accessible. But it just felt so foreign to me. And I felt so intimidated by the process. And I hired a company to get me credentialed. And I won now that I know what is required, like what you need to do to get credentialed with insurance, I was like, I cannot believe that I paid that company that much money to do that for me. And they also gave me bad information, like told me I couldn't credential with Medicaid because Medicaid only covers diabetes and kidney disease, which is true for Medicare and maybe Medicaid in some states, but not my state. My state has great coverage for nutrition counseling.
You do.
For Medicaid. And so there were, I wish I had done more research. And I think it was just like, oh my God, that thing feels too scary for me. So I'm just like not even going to touch it. And I'm going to let somebody else do it for me. And like, I wish I had saved my money and done a little bit more research. And I think that it just speaks to that. So I think we can be really quick to doubt ourselves and our skills and our abilities, and we're capable of a lot more than we think. And so, like I said, I never thought I was going to be a group practice owner, and here I am. Like I have 2 employees, and I'm preparing to hire a third, and I love having a group practice. And so you can figure it out. Like, yeah, it feels new and it feels scary and it feels foreign, and you can figure it out. And other people have been there before, and people are generally, I've found, a community of dietitians who are incredibly supportive and helpful along the way.
That's excellent. Yes. So, just to kind of put a finer point on what you're just saying, sometimes we do need to seek out the advice of other either professionals, colleagues, or, some other specialty that knows more about our thing than, like an attorney, right? Or like, how do I form a business in my area? These kinds of things. And then there are other kinds of things, like this is where our powers of discernment are really useful, is when I'm just like, throw up my hands. I don't know what to do. You do it for me. That's a different thing from, hey, I really want to know what the ins and outs are. I need to seek out professional advice. And the only way to get that advice is to actually sometimes pay for it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really, really interesting discernment of, we don't have to do it all ourselves. We do need to seek out advice. And yet sometimes we are more capable than we believe we are, and we can find the answers on our own. So yeah,
totally.
That's tricky. Yeah. So, Dana, this has been wonderful. I so appreciate you being here and taking the time. This has been hopefully helpful for anybody that's watching, and we'll be back next week with another, I believe at least 1, maybe 2 dietitians, and then we'll be off for the holidays, and hopefully back in January, and we'll see what happens in the new year.
Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you, Dana, and thank you everyone for watching, and see you again next time. Bye-bye.